Welcome to Life
on
Life's
Terms
with your host, Justin.
and Kenny.
We're going to get into relationships with models, and we're going to get into relationships in general with our friend, Jeff. But before we get into those things, we like to pay our bills and do these things called shout-outs. So if you want to take it away.
Since it is always training season, what does your meal plan look like? Is keeping a healthy diet robbing from your palate and triggering unhealthy cravings? Keep on your A game and stop cravings at the same time with Ono Poke. Ono Poke is a perfect place to stuff your face with something that ties into your fitness goals. Try the miso salmon poke, the spicy Thai salmon, or the albacore tuna poke on your choice of veg, quinoa, or rice. Eat healthy, eat right, eat Ono Poke.
Would you like to feel like an astronaut? Would you like to detach from this world, disconnect for a little while? Where is the place to do this? Well, our friends over at Modern Gravity is. For only $39.99 a month, you can have the astronaut experience and detach from this world for an hour session. For more details, please visit Modern Gravity's website at www.moderngravity.ca. Bills are paid, Jeff.
Nice, good job.
Boom.
How's your day been so far?
It's a great day. Yeah, it's been a great day.
It's nice to come into the podcast. How do you feel about coming into the podcast?
I'm excited. Like I said before we started rolling, I'm both excited and a little scared because you guys don't fuck around.
Nothing but.
It's all the hard questions.
It's literally life on life's terms, right?
Exactly, yeah.
There's no messing around here.
Yeah, I like that.
So let's. And I think I've bounced this question off of a couple people, but how is it that you get models to, how do you coax them to coming into the studio? Or is it even a coax? Is it a hard sell? Is it an easy sell? Like, how does this?
How do you get them naked?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
So there's a you're going to be disappointed in the answer probably. So now there's not really any coaxing now. Like I've been doing this for 10 or 11 years, and it's as simple or as complicated as someone messages me or I message them and basically share my portfolio. I have a body of work now that sort of says,
Speaks for itself.
And people either are into that or not. And
Now you can't keep them off you.
well, it's not.
Well, so I've seen some Jeff's stuff on Instagram.
It is really
And
nice work.
It's amazing
Thanks.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's really, really amazing.
I actually thought you were one of the models, and I got really excited.
Yeah, you're probably pretty bummed when I showed up. I got to tell you, I get a lot of dick pics on my Instagram from people who are confused by that. Yeah.
Fuck, I love those.
Yeah, so it's nice. So I nothing compared to what some of my models deal with, but yeah. So anyways, you put a call out if you have a concept, or you just sort of message someone, and obviously you have models that you build relationships with, and the thing that I never anticipated that 15-year-old me is super stoked about is how many of them want to be photographed in their underwear or less, and then 15-year-old me is super bummed that now me is really focused on taking good pictures and hardly notices that he's with a naked woman. So it's a double-edged sword.
I don't know what to say to that.
You know what though? I kind of get that, because when we're sitting here on the podcast, we're into the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and then after the podcast, you try having a conversation with somebody, and you're like, I just need a dull, boring conversation. That's what it feels like sometimes. But coming in on the show, you got to be on your A game, like you were saying. There's no fucking around. You kind of got to. It is what it is, right? Yeah. So yeah, I get that. It's like if you had to play video games for a living, eventually playing video games would suck, because you're not looking at it as enjoying it. You're looking at it
doesn't suck.
I don't think taking pictures of naked girls could ever suck.
It doesn't.
Yeah. I guess, right? Yeah. No,
no, it's still good. But you are focused on
The lighting.
actually taking good pictures.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of technical crap that goes. And I'm not a technically inclined photographer, so that's actually hard for me to.
Wow, that's interesting that you say that. That's pretty, because I've seen a lot of guys who go into photography and they go total geek, right? Like they're just totally into that geek thing. They know the difference between acronyms that I don't.
Yeah,
have
no,
any idea.
me too, to be honest. Well, I mean, I'm getting a little better at it after 12 years.
Yeah.
But I still would never think of myself as like a technical photographer, like those guys who work with multiple flashes and strobes. I use constant lighting or available light.
Okay.
Part of that's by choice.
Okay.
Part of it is because I'm not that good at it. So there's stuff like that you're involved with, but it's also just I guess a different style, and that sort of speaks to the relationship thing. Is for me, the whole point of this and the whole reason I got into it is those relationships, even if they last one session that's half an hour or an hour, to do really good portraits, you have to have a really vulnerable connection between the photographer and the subject, the model. And I've had this conversation with models where they've worked with photographers who take really great pictures, but they spend the whole session fucking around with lights and sort of not talking, and the model feels like an afterthought or an obstacle to the photographer creating the picture they want, and that's just so antithetical to where I'm coming from. I want to make a connection with the person from using the camera as the tool to do that.
Well, that's amazing.
That's how I feel about escorts.
How's that?
Well, like I want there to be a connection.
Oh yeah, you were talking about how he
Like
would,
I can't just do like the money transfer.
You want
bing, bang,
you want
boom.
the girlfriend experience.
yeah
Yeah, almost. I want to be told that I'm loved.
Yeah, he would actually make them say, "You have to tell me that you love me," and yeah, that's well, he's getting through codependent no more. So I mean that's where we're at with that. It's a work in progress, right?
That's nice.
Yeah, well, I made
yeah.
it through the first part of detachment, and I taught worrying. I went over worrying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
So are people playing Rent in your head anymore?
only the ones that I'm allowing.
It's nice that you have that door now.
Well,
though,
at least I'm
right?
aware of it.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
It's a big step.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
It's a very big step. Don't have to go and pay for hookers to tell you that they love you anymore. Yeah, that's
No.
a big step. So I'm assuming that you don't ask your models to tell you that they love you, right?
Not as a matter of course,
You should though.
but I don't mind if they say that they do.
I think you'll get better pictures.
You know what? I'll give it a shot at my next shoot.
Okay, nice. Nice.
So who are some of the people that you've worked with, like as in like subjects or models? Like who are some of the models that come in? Do you have like the same set, or do you?
Yeah, so I have a roster is not the right word, but there's a few models who I've developed relationships with who I gel well with, because it's a personality thing. It's like any creative relationship. You need to have some sort of personal connection, and like I feel like, I don't know if it's mutual, but I feel like the models that I have a really good connection with, there's like a kind of a crush. It's not like a romantic thing necessarily. Like we wouldn't ever date. I'm married. I don't.
Yeah.
But there's a that type of connection, that intimate connection that you make with them, and so you want to have more of that always, and keep building that. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can't just have a one-off with a model and not have a good experience.
You know, I can actually empathize with that, and where the filter that I'm coming from is when I was discerning in the priesthood for the Catholic faith at one time in my life, and I was in a relationship with a female partner, and so I would go out. I hadn't taken vows or anything like that. I was observing vows.
Okay.
So what was happening is I would build these spiritual and emotional connections with these people. And then my partner, because I was observing the vow of chastity, so there was no physical relationship between her and I.
So she was pissed.
Well, for sure. But she was more pissed that there was all of these relationships happening in a spiritual and emotional realm, kind of like what you're saying. Like there's that intimacy, and like you're bound by not telling anybody. Like I'm not going to tell her anything. And yet here she is feeling now that there's no physicality within a relationship, but there's also now like this other person who has this intimacy, right?
Yeah.
So how do you deal? You're saying that you're married. How do you deal? Is that like just
well, luckily there is no photographer model privilege, so like I can share whatever happens in a shoot with my wife. But
Yeah.
it was dicey when I first started shooting with models, and especially shooting nude stuff. There's still times where I come home from a shoot and show her the photographs, and she gives me oh, that's what you were doing. but I think, I've used my wife as a model a little bit, and she likes that, and so, but she also has sort of understood, like I was talking about before, that there's a technical aspect to it and an aspect of sort of art creation to it that is a slight barrier or a slight sort of a bit of artifice. So you do share this intimacy, but it's not a relationship. It's not a relationship in the sense of a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, or even a fling. Like there is there could be a transactional quality to it, but it's not like that.
It's an exchange of vulnerability.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's probably not dissimilar to what you guys do. Is you loosen people up in the podcast and you get into some pretty deep stuff, and there has to be trust and sort of vulnerability on everyone's behalf there that they know you're not going to screw them or that if you do, it's unintentional, right? Like that you're there, you're on their side. So I mean, my wife she's at this point my sort of biggest supporter and champion, and it's great. Yeah. So
That's excellent. So did you teach her quite a bit about the technique of your photography?
No, she's not interested in it at all.
No. Does it become like geek mode when you do go there?
I'm not too bad.
Okay.
Because
you don't know much about. No,
I can get hella geeky with lenses and focal length and framing and I could because for me a photograph, I come from film and television.
Yeah.
And so like I've directed movies and stuff like that and so storytelling is sort of the thing, and that's what I try to do, is find just a moment of story or a moment of truth or whatever when I take a photograph. That
was really beautiful how you said that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It was an amazing articulation of almost the segue. You know what I mean? Like going from television and movie making into photography, because I would have never really expected that. Like, I mean, I guess you can see the story from a photo, but it's very rarely that happens. And to know that, like, as a layman like myself, to recognize that that's a story, you know what I mean? That photo is a story. So for you to say that that's your intention in almost every photo that you take, now that you say that, and I think about your body of work now, I actually put it together. I see now.
And it's not a story in the narrative sense. It's not like we went, on an adventure or whatever, but like if you, and this is not going to air today, so this is a totally useless reference point, but if you look at the photo I posted today, it's of a model leaning against a mirror in a fairly dark room, and it's just her face. And one of the things when I shoot is sort of like you guys, I don't talk about, there's a little bit pose like this, pose like that, but especially if I've shot with a model a few times, we get into deep shit while we're talking. We talk about hopes and dreams and fears and wow. real shit. And I don't think I'm betraying a confidence here, but she was going through a hard time when we did that shoot with some stuff, and she was telling me about some really sort of deep-seated insecurity that she was feeling, and then I said, I was like, that's cool, hold still, and snap that photo, and like if you look in her eyes, there's a real sense of longing and vulnerability in her eyes, and it's one of my favorite pictures that I've taken recently, and that's the story. And that's not a story that's like, again, it's not narrative, but if you spend a few minutes with the picture and you sort of see that, and there's something going on, right? And you can see there's a connection between her and the camera.
Yeah,
I just got goosebumps as he was explaining it. Like,
well, one of the ones that I had seen.
If only I could just explain, like, put an audio file with every photo on it. This is what this one's about, guys.
One of the crazy photos I actually saw today was it was New York. You had a picture of it seemed to be like an older lady sitting on a bench and
outside a bar.
Yeah, and the caption underneath was, I sometimes think about what she was like, why she was lost in her thoughts or something along that nature.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I focused in on the older woman at the bar and was like, oh, wow, I can see the intense look on her face.
Yeah.
And then you almost think to yourself, like, well, I've been in those places where people are like, what are you thinking about? And you're like, fuck you, it's private.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? Don't pick my brain.
Yeah,
you know?
no, it's true. It's
Yeah.
true. And I mean, I'm not really a street photographer, but I've occasionally, captured something like that where you just get something and it's really compelling, and so you got to whip the camera out.
So I guess one of the questions I have is, going from TV and movie making, was it an easy segue into still frames? Like, because like the one thing that I noticed with the podcast is in the beginning, looking for the conversation, looking for the people to come, it was a bit of a challenge, right? Trying to get people to come in and sit in front of a microphone. We call it the electric dick sometimes, right?
Yeah, I like that.
So like sometimes people, like, it's difficult in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it almost becomes like part of your universe, where like people basically come up to you and say, I'd love to sit on your show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So was it in the beginning, was it an easy segue in that context, or was it difficult?
Well, it was both, I guess. So it was easy in the sense that I was on film sets and stuff, and there's always lots of characters around willing to have them, eager to have their picture taken, and so I took advantage of that and sort of, and I was always a guy, like I started taking pictures 30 years ago in like photography class at junior high school, and so I've sort of done it off and on, but I really, when I got serious about it, I sort of just always had a camera with me.
Okay.
And I don't really go anywhere without, like, and not just a phone, like a camera.
Yeah.
Because I've also learned, I'm going to digress, which you'll get used to, but I've also learned that part of the whole thing is people buy into the idea of the photographer. So like I could probably take a pretty good portrait of someone just on my phone, and I have, but they're more into it if there's like a big ass camera and a big ass lens.
It's kind of like the ambiance of the equipment that's there, right? Like
Totally. There's a vibe when you whip out a big camera, right?
Well, it's kind of like it's kind of like sitting here. Like I could probably do this podcast on a phone,
sure,
right? Or even like a H3 recorder,
Yep.
2 mics plugged in, and that's it. But here we are sitting in front of, like, there's an actual soundboard. It's a mini soundboard. There's 3 mics. We're all plugged in. It's almost like telephone, but face-to-face
Yeah,
telephone. It's
yeah.
almost like FaceTime, but we're real people in a room, right? So, yeah. And I think if you didn't have this, like, I remember the first time Kenny came in, he saw all this equipment. You could see, like, he was nervous walking in the first place.
Yeah.
In the first episode. And then he saw this, and he's like, oh, shit, this is real. Right? Like that was the first thing. Like, oh, shit, this is real. Yeah, well,
Well, and that's the flip side too. Is there's people who are intimidated by all the lights and stuff like that. And so, like when I talk about sometimes I only use available light, sometimes that's like it can't. So when I was an actor, when I trained as an actor, we got a lot of photos taken of you, and I hated flashes. I always blinked, and I found it really disconcerting. And so I sort of started, when I started shooting people, using constant light or available light to make them more comfortable, and I sort of dealt with the technical limitations of that. And so I really like that. So to go back to your original, after my digression,
Yeah.
is I had people who were willing to do it, but not necessarily to do what I wanted to do, in terms of concepts and stuff like that. And so I sort of had to build up a little bit of a body of work, and have some interactions with people, because there's very much a community, especially in models. And there's like Facebook groups and forums and stuff where it's kind of like Bad Johns. They talk about shitty photographers.
Oh.
And so, because there's a phrase, it's called GWC, guy with camera. And it's dudes who go out and buy a fancy camera so they can get laid, which I got to tell you, buy a car or something. It's get dick surgery. I don't know, because there's got to be better ways to get laid than just having a camera. So you so before you get into the sort of artsy or more risque stuff, you do need to build up a body of work and treat people well and pay people if you're asking them to do stuff that's very specific that you want, or vice versa. If they want a very specific concept, they'll pay me.
Oh, I see.
Or if it's something that you're both just getting creative with, then you do it for free for each other.
So
Nice. So we're looking at some life on life terms team photos.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Not to put it on you on air. And
Yeah, exactly, right?
weaponizing the mic.
Yeah,
I was just excited. It's right.
I think that's kind of I think that's kind of neat though that you're saying how that relationship works, because I would have never actually suspected that it was the models can sometimes be the customer.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, like I always thought, I don't know why, but I guess it's just my ignorance speaking now, but I always thought it was like, Nike would, and I'm using this as an example, but Nike calls and they're like, hey, we want this girl to wear our shoes. You want to take the picture? So I always thought that it was in terms of that.
Well, so like I don't do commercial photography, but I have some friends who do, and so that's not far off. Like in a commercial there'd be an agency who it's like films. They have a casting agent, and they say we want someone that looks like Scarlett Johansson,
Okay.
but like a runner physique, and that's who Nike wants. And so they do a casting call, and like 100 models show up and parade through a room, and they pick 3. And the photographer's part of that sometimes, and sometimes not. Sometimes you show up on set and someone you've never met, and you may not like them, but you still got to make it work, right? So
Yeah.
so that's that can be a tough thing. And I've done that in film. I used to make TV commercials for a large Canadian network. And
we can't say those names here.
Probably not.
Yeah, you probably know CRTC just as well as we do. Yeah, we can't say that stuff here.
So, I've been through that with commercial casting for television, and that's basically how it works. And sometimes the client has very specific quirks that they have. Like I had one client who wouldn't refuse to cast a redhead. They
have no soul.
He had
kick a ginger day.
Well, he had a serious ginger bias.
Yeah.
It was
I worked with one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's weird stuff like so that's sort of the commercial side of things, and that's you're pretty bang on.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
What's the most fucked up pictures you've ever taken?
Professionally or just for myself?
Both.
Well, I was kind of taken back to saying that you got a bunch of dick pics on Instagram. I was pretty sure that they like filtered that shit out. Like
no, dudes send. I probably get a dick pic, at least a dick pic a week. Yeah. So, but I started. This is based on a couple of my models. You screen cap the picture, and you find him on Facebook.
And you tag him in it.
Or you send it to his girlfriend and his mom.
Oh, wow. you know that there's going to be a blog now called Dick Pic.
There has to be one already.
Well, we're going to make one. So like we've enrolled our lifer, one of our bloggers, to blog on this episode. So I'm telling you right now, it's going to be called Dick Pic.
I want to hear her story about how many dick pics she got.
Yeah, I bet you she's got a ton.
All the different shapes and sizes.
So most fucked up picture you've ever taken?
Oh man, I guess there's different kinds of fucked up, but
let's talk about scenario. What's the most fucked up scenario where professionally you had to perform, so to say? I just felt like I was talking to a prostitute again.
Did
you know what? It's funny because I
was James White's Christmas photos. Just wondering.
No.
Oh, okay.
But it's funny because I was listening to the Skylar episode because obviously, but it was actually really funny how many parallels.
Oh, I know.
They're sort of, because it's a transactional kind of industry, and there's this sort of intimacy, and people will tell you and do shit for you that they won't do for their husband or wife, and it's not sexual for me, obviously, but like, I've had models perform on themselves because they wanted to capture that
intrigued
for themselves, and
so I have a Panasonic 300 ZX or something
what was that acronym? Guy with camera?
Yeah,
We're gonna get a Life on Life's Terms T-shirt that says GWC on it.
So exactly. So this is actually film and not photography. But when I was in film school, I had a girl at college who, and this is sort of just prior to like everyone having a camera on their phone sort of vibe. So you would still need a camera to sort of do stuff. And she wanted to audition for one of the porn companies in LA.
Oh my God.
And they actually had very specific requirements.
Such as?
Well, like technical requirements,
Oh.
like it had to be in a certain codec and a certain resolution, and
Oh, wow.
and, like it's actually really professional. The
But
porn
what about the
industry.
requirements for her?
So she
Get to the meat and potatoes of this, Jeff.
she the creative requirements were that she had to masturbate, do oral, give and receive, and do intercourse in 3 different positions, and then do a money shot externally.
I want to know, when you're looking at her creative thing, what's rolling through your mind in that moment?
I was like, well, what honestly?
Yeah.
So I had a buddy who used to edit porn in Vancouver, and he's like, hey, you don't want to ever get into porn because it's like the gynecologist joke, right? Like that you never want to see naked women again.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other thing he said is he's like, you don't see the outtakes where shit gets on the camera guy.
Yeah, yeah. Literally.
And so, well, yeah, literally. Yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah.
And so that was the first thing going through my mind was like, how can I film this with a long lens if I'm going to film it? Ultimately, it didn't end up working out. We didn't film, so I never got that experience.
So the parallel that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The parallel that I'm pulling here as Jeff's talking about this as a pimp. So that's what I used to in my past life.
Yeah.
As Jeff is saying this, like, yeah, you get detached from it. You kind of, that's totally real. And as you were saying, like the management of that, you know what I mean? As Jeff was talking about his photography, I'm like, fuck, that's pimping. Like that's
That's what I thought too.
yeah, like you don't get involved. You have to be detached. Like, cry on my shoulder. There's another call. We'll take you there. Don't worry. It's just the last one for the night. I mean, as shitty as that sounds,
It's a business.
it is.
Yeah.
It's a business. And secondly, are you the asshole pimp, or are you the guy who actually takes care of these females, right? Like these women of the night, so to say. And there's a clear distinction. And I think that's kind of what I'm seeing too when you're saying like GWCs, guys with cameras, and an actual photographer, right? Like we have a good example of what a GWC is sitting
Right here, yeah. I'm gonna set my camera up
I
when I
think you
get
can
home.
do it, Kenny. Yeah, I think you're fine.
Yeah.
I think you just put it. Well, like anything, you put an ad on Craigslist and offer someone $100 and
Yeah, Leo list. No.
Leo list.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the one.
Okay.
That's for all the escorts. Actually,
Hey, there's a marketing strategy. I'll just go on Leo list, and I'll send all the girls a message saying, "Yo, I'll do your professional photos for you."
There you go.
That's still solicitation, right?
I've done some. They're called headshots, but like they weren't headshots for girls that work in the massage parlors.
Oh yeah.
So the like basically just lingerie photos, but yeah, it was really. A couple girls like booked me.
What's a call that you said, no way, I'm not taking those photos?
Honestly, it wouldn't really be anything content related. It would be either I've heard you're a prick, and I don't want to work with you, or it's too commercial.
Oh, okay.
Because that's not my jam. And weddings. I don't like doing weddings.
What's your issue with weddings?
They're
would
fucking
hate them.
picky.
Yeah, I would hate
Just
them.
imagine the pressure he would be under from like a bitchy bride.
I want my fucking pictures. Yeah, I mean, so I've shot 2 weddings. They were both for friends who, like, their photographers bailed on them at the last minute, and so they were pretty grateful to have someone. So that was like a good situation to walk into. But just the amount of pressure and preparation that has to go into shooting a wedding. Like those wedding photographers are serious business. Like I have a couple friends who are like big time wedding photographers, and they put weeks and months of preparation into shooting a wedding, and usually they hire 1 or 2 assistants. It's expensive, and so to do and like anything, you need practice to do it well, right? And so you don't want to charge someone $3,000 and do a shitty job.
Yeah.
So I just say no.
Yeah. I think we, like you were talking about the hoeing, so to say, like being a whore of the industry. We have been very fortunate with the podcast where none of the sponsors have ever said to us, "You can't say that." Like that, we haven't had that. God willing, that doesn't happen. Because I think for us, it would be more along the line of, well, guess what? we're just not going to have you as a sponsor then.
Yeah, right.
You know, because that's another form of censorship. And so I see that, like when you're saying, you know, you almost have to censor yourself more because of the environment as opposed to the content. So as you were saying, like there's been no content that you've ever said no to.
Yeah.
It's more the scenario of the environment.
Yeah.
That's almost the same thing for us when it comes down to like doing our promos or, you know, our blurbs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I wouldn't say no unless it was a shitty product. We've both floated, we've gone to Onopoke, like anything, you know, Liam's our lawyer, like all the people that we've ever promoted, they're people within our circle
or
like
products that we use, services we use.
Yeah. So like it's one of those things, and I can see the parallel of that as well, where you're saying no to environment, we're saying yes to environment, and then when it comes to content, well, there's some content we're not allowed to talk about in Canada. Just straight up, like CRTC will sue the shit out of you. That's a reality. So
it's funny you say it. So one of the when I made commercials, and that's part of the reason I'm like this now is you make commercials for 5 years. You got to make what they want, right?
Yeah.
But there was a local adult store that wanted to make a commercial, and
that'd be a good sponsor.
No.
Think of all the free stuff we can get.
There's real Catholics that listen to this show, Kenny.
Okay.
Let's let Jeff continue.
Okay, sorry.
Kenny's angling for all the butt plugs he can get, though. That's let him dream.
Yeah.
But no, it was like there was literally nothing we could put in this ad. We were basically allowed to have their logo and like this is the address of the store. And I felt so bad for the guy because like he wanted to make it more welcoming to women, and he wanted to talk about that, and he wanted to show like there's a sense of humor. Like his heart, he's coming from a really good place, and but the rules were just so strict on that content. That
was that CRTC who placed those, or was it the actual company? We won't say any names. But
no, it wasn't the company or the CRTC. There's actually a voluntary body that all of Canada's major broadcasters belong to, called the Broadcast Standards Council.
Oh yeah.
And then they fund an arm's length group called Telecaster. I think it's changed in the last couple of years, but basically any commercial that's airs on network television has to be submitted and approved to them, both for sort of technical specifications, but also content and honesty, basically.
Wow,
and
just honesty. Man.
Yeah, but like I mean, we're getting way off topic now, but there's weird sort of specific rules. I did an ad for the farmers market.
Oh yeah,
and we couldn't call shit farm fresh because not every vendor at the farmer's market brings stuff directly from the farm. Some of them buy them from a third party.
Wow.
And so it's not farm fresh, as I make finger quotes, which is great in the podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like it's weird shit like that. So I'm not totally versed in what you deal with the CRTC, but I can imagine how fucked up it is.
So we've actually, like, I don't mind throwing CRTC under the bus because they can't really fuck with us. We're on a podcast, like we're not on any broadcasting radio air, so to say, in Canada. I guess if you really want to call Wi-Fi that, I mean you could, but not really. But they have there's topics that they have said to us where we're literally just not allowed to touch, and that gets pretty sticky, especially when you see the political climate in Canada. And then when you see that, and then you know that you can say something you want to, but at the same time, what I've noticed in the podcasting world is people will say clickbait, right? Like they'll just say some shit so that they get 10, 15,000 downloads, but then it's the one thing that they have. And then they almost go in the line of what's the next thing that's clickbait. Yeah. And so we're starting to see in Twitter, like, look at those kids down in the States, those Catholic kids where they're wearing the MAGA hats.
Yeah.
And we can talk about America because it's not Canada. So they're wearing those MAGA hats, and then you have this Aboriginal guy who's beating the drum, and then the narrative became that it was white guys, white young youths going after this Aboriginal guy, when really you see the full length of the story, and that's not what the narrative is of the story. And then you see all these people trying to clickbait it through Twitter, and they got the story wrong. And now in America, the recourse is we're suing you because you were ready to dox 16-year-old kids. You gotta let kids be kids. You know what I mean? Like, we were all assholes. You know, I was one of the biggest assholes ever as a teen. I was a bully. I wasn't a nice kid, you know, and then I grew up to be a nicer man. You know, like you have to allow people to have that recourse in their life, because it's coming to a place now where, you know, you write something the wrong way and it's there for life.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it's interesting going to bring it back to photography, the idea of truth, right? And I mean, it's something that I'm sort of mildly obsessed with, is this idea of truth in a picture. And people always talk about, you know, Photoshop your photos and it's a complete fake. But the truth is, as soon as you decide, you know, that, you know, like we're sitting here and you guys are sitting across the table from me.
Yeah.
And you know, I decide to take a photo of the two of you. Yeah. Nice two shot or whatever. That's a different story than if, you know, I take a photo of the two of your hands on the table and you know, Kenny's tatted up and there's people are going to make judgments about you because of, you know, like hand tattoos, right? Yeah. And stuff like that. And which one is truth, right? So as soon as you choose what to photograph, you're doing a version of the truth. And so then you have to think about, well, fuck truth. What's authentic? And then that's an even more fraught conversation, because photography is artifice. It's fake. You're capturing a single moment. And if you're very lucky, like the photo of the woman on the bench, she's not aware when I'm taking the picture, and that can be a moment of truth. But anything like a portrait with a model, it's fake as fuck. I mean, we have intimacy. We're working together. We're creating something, but we're doing that. Like it's utterly fake. And you know, people always say, "Oh, I wish I could take pictures like you." Well, you know, take 10,000 photos and work with a professional who knows how to pose and can just sort of open themselves up to that, right?
So that's kind of crazy, the 10,000 rule. You went to that. Yeah. Do you believe in the 10,000 rule?
I don't know, but I'll tell you, I don't know if I know I've taken 10,000, I've taken 100,000 photos.
Here comes Woo Woo Month.
No, you're good. I want to know if you have any, like, you know, days you can bring in an apprentice.
Yeah, I need an assistant sometime. You know, to hold the light.
I'll be that guy.
Because Kenny, sometimes there, you know,
Kenny, you can't hold the light though with a heart on.
Maybe
I can prove you wrong.
Some of those lights, they're made to go on a peg, so could possibly hold it with a heart on.
Oh wow! Boom. There you go, Kenny. We got you your part-time job.
Nice.
You know, sometimes you're doing some of that bodyscape stuff, which is like, you know, the close-up of body parts with the shadow, and it's really artsy and stuff. Yeah. You got to have the light, you know, just right. It's hard to do that, you know. You're holding it and
hey, like, I'm a very, like, artistically inclined individual, and like I can spot beauty a mile away, and like I bought a camera because I was intrigued by photography. I always have been. But I haven't done anything with it.
Yeah, that's a pretty common story, actually.
Yeah, I don't know how to use it.
Yeah. Well, so to the 10,000 rule, my advice, for whatever it's worth, is not that good, but my advice is fuck it, take pictures. And chase stuff that's interesting to you, right? So like if you want to do photographs of escorts, find escorts that'll let you take their picture, but find something about it that interests you. Like there's a million tits and ass pictures.
Their feet.
Sure. Hey, there's money to be made in that.
There's money to be made in the foot shots.
Well, and you know, like talking about the 10,000 rule, one of the reasons why I decided to start the podcast was because I was pretty sure that I had 10,000 hours worth of conversation.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Like I was sure that was there. And it became a fuck it idea. Fuck it. I mean, what do I have to lose? Sure, there's a bunch of podcasts out there. Sure, there's, you know, all these shows that have been established for a while. But what is it like in Canada? Yeah. What is it like in Edmonton? Yeah. What is it like in Alberta? And then I started seeing, well, let's see where this goes. And the next thing I know, in America for California, that's our biggest audience.
Really?
California and Texas. As contrasted as they are,
that's interesting.
That's like the biggest. That's where we're the most popular, really. That's really in America. So like, yeah, that was the first reason why I decided the podcast would be great, was because there's probably already 10,000 hours of conversation time running through this jaw.
Yeah.
Right. So start taking pictures of all the feet that you can, Kenny.
Yeah, and all I'll say is
honey.
I was having this conversation with a photographer friend of mine because she messaged me, and I think she's amazing. I've never seen a shitty picture that she's taken, and she just messaged me out of the blue. And she goes, "Do you ever look at your photography and just think it's shit and everyone else's is better?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, all the time." And we sort of end up talking about it, and what we came to is that the not the better we get, because I think it's a journey, and I took some good photos right when I started, and I take some shitty photos now, but I take less photos overall than I used to, especially like in a session. Like now, I know now if I do more than sort of 400 photos in a session, it's going horribly wrong because I've just started clicking and hoping for the best. But I take less photos in a session. There's more good ones, but less that I love. And so you become more discerning, which sort of spurs you to do better work. And the only frustrating side of that is you get less and less satisfied with your work.
That's kind of what I was an engineer. Yeah. And so that's what ends up happening.
How many careers have you had?
Many.
Yeah.
Many. Well, this is the reason why I can't work for people.
It's fair.
It's the truth. Like, so when I was in the engineering world, like doing geomatics and stuff, I went through many companies. But that's because I worked in the oil field.
Yeah.
And so because of that, that was like right down my alley. That was great. And then when I had to buckle down and work for Stantec, a municipal firm, I don't mind throwing them under the bus either. I got utterly drunk and was asked to leave pretty much. I wrote my own "See you later," and I probably lost one of the best jobs that I could have had. However, it wouldn't have led me to here.
One of the best jobs,
So like it would have never led me to here. And now living in a self-starter lifestyle that I live in today, I have a really hard time. Like I could probably do a part-time job somewhere, but my eye is always on the door. Like, just give me the reason to say fuck off and I'm gone. Like, keep your check. Fuck you. Like that's where I live today. And so when I was in the engineering world, what I found was, because it was especially geomatics, you get sued for your mistakes all of the time. Like all of the time. And by millimeters you get sued. So all the time you're high stressed. You're building a fucking bridge and you have to be millimeters on the mark or else you're screwed, right? Like they're going to take, and it's not like, sure, your wage is only $100,000 or whatever it is, but you might have just fucked up an $80 million project.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting sued for.
Yeah, sure.
So what I was getting at with the podcast, in contrast, is this is done. We edit it to a degree of taking out the background noise to the best that we can. I actually like the background noise in the podcast, and the reason why I like it is because it shows the audience that it's real.
Yeah, that we're in a room
and we didn't at all edit what you said.
Yeah.
We started from 0 to 58 or whatever minute we end up stopping at, and you can't come back and say, no, they took it out of context and they edit. No, it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm on the record. There's no context to what I'm saying.
so or there's like they moved things, right? Which is what I hear a lot of other podcasts get into that issue. And then what I also started realizing is no show is perfect. We've had amazing shows. We've had shows that were like shooting a 6, you know what I mean? And then we had shows that were like off the charts and it was a great time. So we almost have to just let the powers be sitting around the mics.
Well, see, but it's that same search for authenticity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Fuck, you're fucking deep and poetic, eh, Jeff?
Yeah, that's what they pay me for, is the deep poetics.
Wow.
But I gotta ask you guys a question now. Like, so this is something I remember from like my film training and also making movies. Can you tell when you're in the middle of a podcast if it's going to be a good one or if it's going to suck ass? Because when you're making movies, you don't know at all. And so you could have the best time in the shittiest movie.
So if I start asking like interview questions, like short answer interview questions, and I'm like, oh fuck, I'm running out of content type thing. But that's only happened a couple times. But they still ended up okay. They weren't like a write-off or anything.
No, they were good. And yeah, they were good. And I think the other thing is, and I've been guilty of this, where I come in and I'm so excited to meet the person that it becomes self-serving for me. I'm not sitting here for the fans. I've almost lost that idea. and I forget about. It's not that I forget about the fans or the audience. What ends up happening is I'm just so enthralled, so to say, that
I just want to come to the studio and hold those lights up.
And so,
well, no, but see, that's really funny because that's the opposite. Like I go into every photo shoot, it's totally selfish. I want to get something out of that. I could give a shit if it's
Cheers.
If it's gonna go big on Instagram or if I'm gonna sell it or whatever. I really don't give a shit. Which is, I mean, it's a very privileged and lucky place to be to not have to care about that. But I also find that I take some of my best photos when I go into it with that attitude.
Well, and I guess like the one thing that I'm always looking for is what can I learn from this person? But then the other thing is if I'm self-seeking, like let's go do something together, so on and so forth. If I go along that road too much, then what ends up happening is it just becomes I've put you on the spot. You know what I mean? And then what you're going to find right away from the person who is sitting down having a conversation with you, they're going to start retracting.
Yeah.
They're going to stop. They're not going to open up, and they're going to sit there and they're just going to be like, well, I'm not telling this person anymore because then next thing I know, I'm going to be in fucking court with this guy doing whatever, or I'm going to be, they almost get hostage taken. Right.
Yeah.
So,
although in fairness, you warned me about that before we rolled. So really it's on them.
You may become a hostage. A signed dotted line.
That's right. So
the duct tape on the table is ominous.
Well, we both come from that background, so
the duct tape background.
yeah.
I mean, at least there's at least nobody's vehicle has the trunk open outside, so you're relatively safe right now.
Well, and we're in like what is this? The Knights of Columbus Hall?
Yeah.
Nothing really bad ever happens in a
it's pretty well a church. You know what I mean? There's a sword on the wall. Yeah, it's all good.
That's awesome.
So I think that's when you know. Or actually, Kenny and I have had this where it's the next day.
Yeah.
The conversation's rolling around in your head, and you're like, "Fuck, I could have did a better job."
That happens to me.
That's
like that stigma of when you got like bullied as a kid, and then you walked away from it, and you're like, "Fuck, I should have punched that guy in the face," and you just feel like a bitch, right? But now it's like you get off the show, and an hour later,
just described my whole junior high experience.
Well, hey, I've been there too, man. Yeah. Fuck, I've been there too. And then you get home after you're eating dinner or something, and you're like, fuck, I should have asked that question.
Yeah. That's always that's the kicker. So let me ask you this then: when you're done a movie and you see it's shit, do you go back and try to fix it?
Well, it depends because like it depends what you do on the film, right? Like so if you're like a grip or camera guy or whatever on the film, and that's not your those decisions are above your pay grade. That's the director and the producer. No, you just maybe take it off your resume.
Which we have thought about taking off of we've thought about taking Life on Life's terms off of our LinkedIn pages a couple times. We post something like, shit.
Don't want my banker to see this.
I wonder why I'm not getting any calls back from all the resumes I'm putting out.
Well, this is why you're balls deep in this sucker now. Yeah. You can't hear me. Anyway, sorry. And then there's other times where I've directed short films, and and it just blows, and you just you'd stick it in a drawer. Yeah. Because or you can keep futzing with it and try and make it better, and sometimes you do, and sometimes you just got to let it go. I've had that with trying to clear up background noise on the podcast. Mind you, I mean, software, and it can only do so much without just cutting it out, you know?
Yeah.
And I think even being in an actual, like in a sound booth, it's still going to there's still going to be issues.
Well, every room has a tone, right?
Yeah.
That's what you record room tone when you're recording audio, and so that you can get rid of that. But yeah, it does lend that authenticity, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. Like, go ahead.
I got two questions.
Yeah.
One is, okay, wait, never mind. I fucked up. Go on. I had a total brain fart. I had two really good questions. They're going to come back.
But maybe tonight.
I was like put on the spot, and it was like, boom, I pissed my pants.
It's going to be tonight, though, and you're going to wake up in the middle and go, fuck, I should ask that question.
Yeah. He just chucked his wad away.
Fuck, I'm trying to think of it. Stop talking. Just kidding. Keep talking.
Concentrate.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I going from being a recording musician to this, like that was always, I always wanted to be a musician.
Yeah.
Right.
Who doesn't?
Until you realize that they make no money.
Yeah.
Right. And then you start realizing that you can't even sing your own words.
Yeah.
Your music is not yours.
Yeah.
You end up, so I actually have a lot of, respect for like the bar room guy who's doing covers and his own stuff. You know what I mean? Like that speaks to me. Whereas like watching these new artists that are out there and like this Post Malone. So I literally saw an interview of Post Malone and they're like, how did you make your voice sound like that? He's like, auto-tune?
Yeah.
Like that's what it is now.
Actually, I saw someone shared a video at work today where they auto-tuned their cat and it didn't sound that different from Post Malone.
But it's crazy.
My friend met him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was Halloween, and they're like, you have the sickest Post Malone costume ever.
He's like, I am Post Malone.
And he just like played along with it for like 20 minutes.
That's
but then
awesome.
like,
That's hilarious.
so hey, wait, I remember the questions. They're
Okay,
pretty
here we
simple,
go.
too.
Go for it.
So have you ever done any documentaries?
Yes.
And have you ever photographed any celebrities?
Okay, so documentaries, yes, I've done. I did 2 documentaries when I worked for a Canadian network. One was on food culture and sort of the whole farm to table thing in Alberta.
Oh, cool.
It was fun. It was really awesome. And then the other one was it was probably the most fun I've ever gotten paid for. There's these 2 dudes who had these 100-year-old cars. A 1914 McLaughlin and a 1915 Studebaker, and McLaughlin was actually the precursor to Buick.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, they found the original roadmap for Alberta, and to call this thing a roadmap is generous. It was basically a list of directions from Calgary to Edmonton.
Used to be a geomatic engineer, yeah.
But it was shit like, at mile 16 is the Wilson House. They have a phone if you need help. Like it was like that, right? And so, anyways, they wanted to recreate it with these 100-year-old cars back in 2014. It was the 100th anniversary of this map, and so we spent a month with them, but we spent 4 days on the road with them, and they were in period costume. They didn't use any modern technology. And that was a lot of fun.
That's excellent.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's probably the funnest documentary I've ever done. And then the second question was
Celebrities?
have I photographed celebrities? Well, I photographed some of the cast of Caution May Contain Nuts, so they'd be like local celebrities, people like Mark Meir, or
Oh, yeah.
Howie Miller, who's a great comedian.
Howie Miller. I just saw his stuff, I think, on Instagram looking for, I think he's doing something soon.
He is always doing something. He's like the busiest guy I know.
Yeah, I think I saw something. Yeah.
And then I've been lucky enough. I have a friend that I went to theater school with named Tiffany Eilick, who is a Indigenous singer and actress, and she's in a band called Quantum Tangle, who are the fucking bomb. If you want to,
I'm gonna check them out.
It's like a mix of like blues. So her partner in the band, it's her and her sister Kaylee, and her partner Gray, who's like a blues guitarist, and it's this mix of like blues guitar and Inuit throat singing and like loops and shit like that. Anyway, they won a Juno last year, so they're kind of celebrities too, right? That's the Canadian version of a Grammy.
So when you were with that Canadian media company,
Yes.
did you ever get to run a camera for Junos or anything of that nature?
No, nothing like that. I've never been a camera op for film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm a director and a producer.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so again, I don't know what I'm doing.
I just ate cock there too.
So no, I never ran a car. I never ran a camera, but I did have the opportunity to meet some pretty cool people through that. I got to meet the twins who played the Weasley brothers in the Harry Potter movies. I got to meet Bobby Orr, which was probably my dad's favorite celebrity that I ever met. I got to meet Jane Goodall.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that's probably the most starstruck I've ever been in my life.
Has it ever been to a point though where you were like, in that being starstruck, like we were just talking about that here on the show, where you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe this person is here. Has it ever been where you were gripped? Like you couldn't?
Oh, well, so Jane Goodall was, I wasn't in on the interview, and she was in town to do some sort of engagement at the U of A or something like that. And they basically snuck her in to do an interview and didn't tell anyone. And I literally was running like a disc down to an edit bay or something. And I didn't actually run into her, but I just came upon her.
Yeah.
I just like broke down in tears.
Oh, wow.
I was totally overwhelmed, and I just shit the bed. But it was, but it was hilarious because she clearly deals with this all the time. Because she just gave me a hug and said, hello, and it's nice to meet you. And it was totally fantastic. So I'm pretty good. I've been lucky over. I had a buddy in Vancouver who was the technical director for the Vancouver Folk Festival.
Oh, that's cool.
And has done some really cool shit that I've sort of ridden his coattails on. Like when U2 was rehearsing their Elevation tour back in 2001, 2002, he was the Edge's sort of on-call tech for their 5-week rehearsal period.
Because he's crazy, actually, Edge. If you've ever seen his stuff with guitars, man, like...
Dude, I went into the Edge room underneath the stage. We could do a whole podcast just on that.
Well, yeah, because this is the movie I'll refer to as It Might Get Loud. I'm a guitar junkie,
movie,
right?
Yeah.
So, like, this is what I found, though. So you had Jack White, Jimmy Page, and the Edge. And when they went to go jam, this is where I was kind of pissed about Edge. He's such a technical player that he couldn't hang with the two.
Yeah.
He would have been better to go and play with Joe Satriani than playing with Jimmy Page and Jack White. Because Jack White is, the beginning of the movie, spoiler alert, he basically makes a guitar out of a fucking stick, a piece of like a string, like a steel cord, and a bottle.
Yeah.
And literally, it's the electric guitar. Plugs it in. Like, he just made the whole fucking thing from nothing. And he's like, and they're like, what's going to happen, Jack? And he's like, there's going to be a fist fight because I want to fucking steal everything that they have. That was his whole mantra going into that thing. And then you see them jam, and it's like, I kind of felt like a threesome was happening, and Edge couldn't get it up. That's what it felt like to me as I'm watching the documentary. I love his talent.
But it's really interesting. That idea of like the surest way to be miserable is to compare yourself to other people, right? Like you totally like here he is. He's in arguably like top 5 bands in the history of the world, like sales wise and tour wise and whatever. And you totally got the vibe that he felt like he couldn't hang with those guys.
Yeah.
And he was like totally into learning the riffs and stuff like that. But when they were just jamming and stuff, he felt a little on the outside. Yeah. I totally felt that vibe. Yeah.
He just totally walked off, and you're like, fuck, man, get in there and do something.
Yeah.
And then like there's literally Paige and Jack White standing in front of each other, guitars in front of each other.
Playing Black Dog.
Yeah. Fucking wailing it out, and Jack's just following what Paige is doing, and they're complimenting it. They're almost finishing each other's riffs and chords and shit.
It was cool.
It's fucking amazing to see that symbiotism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've had that playing with guys like in a jam set. Like we'd be high on meth. We'd start playing Friday. Finish Sunday morning at 5.
You'd be tight by Sunday morning, I would think.
Well, we were tight all the way through, really, until like Saturday midnight happened, and then you're just fucked, really. Like you're basically rolling on the ground with your guitar going, I love you so much.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, but I've experienced that with people on stage where you're just on it. And I get that with Kenny too. Like even when we're sitting here and it's like the Him and I show, I've had it with guests as well. But Kenny and I now have gotten into a rhythm where it's like, it's a back and forth banter, and it's really nice. There's almost that riffing that happens, right? So do you get that with because you were saying that you have your models that come in?
Oh, nice. Bringing it back. That was good. That's good podcasting. Well
awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there are models who I work with now where like, so sometimes when you'll have a very specific concept in mind for something, a very specific type of artifice you want to create. And other times you'll say, fuck it, let's go for a walk and see what we find and just do it. And
because you're making it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the artificial piece of,
yeah.
That's awesome.
And so there's some models who like I trust enough and they trust me enough that we don't sort of have a plan. We just show up and I say, bring a suitcase of clothes and we'll find something that works and we'll
This seems so fun.
It beats having
Look at the podcast beats having a 9-to-5-er.
Yeah.
It's brother, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like this is why like so let's preface, Jeff.
No, I was saying it'd be so fun to be the model with a suitcase of clothes.
You could be an escort with a suitcase of clothes. Remember the girl that came in? She's like, I'll be right there after I find my clothes.
She was coming from work.
We can't say that, actually.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So let's preface how we met, because I think that's pretty amazing. Like God or odd, call it whatever you want.
On social media.
Literally. So I made a comment about one of your photos. And then I literally said, I think you had said something back, like, thanks for the comment. And then I was like, hey, man, you ever want to sit down on a podcast? And then all I got was, yeah, sure. And then here we are, like, less than a week, I think,
yeah.
sitting
Well,
there.
you know what? I've regretted saying no to a lot of shit. I've never regretted saying yes to something.
Isn't that true?
Like, so fuck it, say yes.
I've regretted a few yeses.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, when you got I've got the drip from a yes. It's happened. I mean, it's cleared up now, but yeah, I regretted a couple yeses.
Well, you might have said no to a condom then, and then.
Well, and I also.
So really, it's no.
I said yes, and next thing you know, I got a government stay for 8 or 9 months, a couple times. And yeah. We regret
Okay, well, it's
those
not a
yeses.
foolproof. It's not a foolproof philosophy.
I mean, I remember the dying last words of an addict. Right? I'll say yes to anything and everything. And then your arm's junked out. You have a real problem now. It's just all problem. It's no more fun. But you're right, though. I don't regret it all now, really. I mean, here I am sober, so it's something I had to learn.
It's true. Yeah. Well, in the context of creativity, I guess.
So do you get a lot of models that way through social media after observing your work on Instagram, so on and so forth?
Yeah, I get what I sort of get. I get now is people will message me and they'll sort of give me the, hey, I'd love to work with you, and I would say 90% of the time that doesn't amount to anything, but 10% of the time you get something really good out of it, and that's kind of like life, right? You just got to swing, and hope you
Throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Do
Kinda.
you get a lot of models? Like, I just thought of this too. Do you get any models where they already have the agent, so to say, and then they come to you saying that they want you to take the photos for them?
Sure, yeah, it's really common for so it's less common in a place like Edmonton because there's not enough of a industry
Yeah.
to really support.
So are you a jet setter then with your job?
Hardly. Hardly. But there are a couple modeling agencies in Alberta of varying degrees of repute. And some of them, they sign the models and then tell them they have to get X types of shoots for their portfolio. And so, but they leave it up to the model to actually find the photographers and do that. But it goes back to that specific technical, same as the porn company. There's specific looks and technical requirements that they have that the models don't have the expertise in to do. And so sometimes that can be pretty boring work. So I try not to do too much of it. But if it's interesting or if the model seems nice, then what the hell?
It's nice to live in a world where it's like, does it intrigue me? Because if it doesn't, then I'm not doing it. If it does, that's what I get with the podcast a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like, is it worth me doing or is it not worth me doing?
There's a great photographer. He's passed on now, but named Bill Cunningham, who was a street photographer for the New York Times for about 50 years. And he had people tried to, like, because he's in New York and he was a tastemaker, right? And so all the like big fashion labels would always want him to get to photograph their collections and stuff like that, and he never did it. And when people asked him why, he just said, if you don't take their money, they can't tell you what to do. I kind of love that one. I think, well,
that's your quote.
I've got the quote on my Instagram profile. Yeah.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at that and I was like, what the fuck does that even mean?
Basically means I don't do well with authority. It's what the short answer is what it means.
Touché, me too.
Do you have any more questions?
I'm okay for right now.
We hit an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was it?
That's a quick hour.
Yeah, that's that. Well, we'll have to have you come back. I think that's we're gonna have a sequel.
Sure. Yeah.
Probably. Yeah. Where can they find you, Jeff?
Dick Pics Part 2, right?
Where can they find you?
You know what? You can just woodward.ca is the website, and then that's my handle on Twitter and Instagram is also woodward.ca, just written out.
Excellent.
So they can find me anywhere like that if they want to.
Well, I got to thank you for coming in.
Thanks for asking.
because this was a hell of a show.
Honestly, it was really fun.
Yeah, I had a great
I
time.
had a lot of fun.
I had a blast. You guys are fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
I can't wait to come to your studio.
Well, so seriously, you guys want if you guys want to come to a photo shoot, I'll bring you to a photo shoot and you can.
I think that would be a good time.
Yeah, I think we're down.
Sure.
I think, yeah. See, we put him on the spot for the. You know what's going to happen here, Kenny.
I'll put on whatever lingerie you guys want me to.
That's you know it. And
It's like the train coming down the tracks.
Yeah.
You see it, but you can't stop it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Life on Life's Terms is going to get banned on Instagram with those photos.
As it turns out, male nipples are fine.
Yeah.
So as long as Kenny doesn't have girl nipples, we're good.
Or dick pics. You got to keep.
What if
that.
I have a dick pic tattooed right beside my nipple?
So I know we're done. I know we're done. So you can cut if you want before I tell this story. But I have,
No.
Oh
we're not
no,
cutting
no,
shit.
no! We're
So
it's
just
going.
the Instagram censorship thing is hysterical because I have one of the sort of ongoing art projects I have is a thing called the Covers Project, and it's a thing called it's projection mapping. So it's basically you project a 2D image on a 3D object.
Yeah, I do that for our clips.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this, what I do is I actually don't use models. This is real people. So if you guys want to come do this, we can do this. But basically, I project get people to pick their five favorite album covers, and we project it onto their bodies and do sort of abstract art photography of like album covers on people's bodies.
Oh,
I want to do the
cool.
Nirvana one with the naked baby floating.
It's a popular choice.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is because you really have to look to sort of figure out what you're looking at. I've posted full frontal male nudity.
And it's gotten through Instagram.
Totally through on Instagram.
Holy
but I
shit.
post something that even has the outline of a female nipple and I get put in Instagram jail. It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, we've had voices, like voice stuff. So like we're on a scale.
Yeah.
So we're okay come Thursday, and then when the clips come out, by Friday we're almost in Instagram jail. So like, and then it builds up again by Thursday, and then we put more stuff out, and it's like, oh, you dropped an F-bomb. Oh,
Interesting.
oh yeah. Yeah. I kind of think sometimes that there's like nobody really knows what the rules are.
No, they make them up.
Yeah, like, yeah, we got to stop there because I don't want to get kicked off Instagram. I'm scared
That's
now.
right. Love Instagram, great platform.
Yeah,
Thanks,
you guys are amazing. Thanks for getting my content out there. Love ya.
Bootlickers.
All right, brother. You want to wrap this thing up?
All right. Please subscribe and share with all your friends. You can find the after show blog at www.lifeonlifestermspodcast.com. Please become a Pride member at your soonest convenience. Join our Pride. Leave us your email on our website.
And we will not sell it to anybody. We will not sell it to any of our sponsors or any of those people. It's simply
Not even
just,
Jeff.
No, it's just simply so that you guys know when our content and blogs are coming out.
If you'd like to become a financial contributor, thanks. we do have a Patreon page. It is www.patreon.com. Life on Life's Terms with capital L's. A contribution as little as $5 a month. We'll send you all the good vibes we can.
Have a beautiful day, guys.
Adios.